Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring this cute little stamp set from Crafty Meraki. It is called All My Love. I am using both the stamps and the dies today to do some very quick but elegant watercolor cards. So first things first, in order to get this look, we're going to do some heat embossing. I'm going to do one of them heat embossing in white on watercolor cardstock and one of them heat embossing on gold in watercolor cardstock. Both of them I stamped in pigment ink and then heat embossed, but you could certainly use a clear embossing ink like Versamark. I do that later on with the sentiments. So whichever one you have will totally work. Why are we embossing? Because it is the fastest way to apply watercolor and still maintain the lines in your image. So sometimes, and we've all been there, you want a card that is quick, that's not going to take a lot of time. Maybe you don't have as much time to craft, or maybe you need it for an event that is coming up and you didn't realize you didn't have one. Or maybe you just, you're like, I want to make something to kind of get my crafty mojo back on track, but something that's not going to take me a ton of time or a ton of effort, but I still want it to be pretty. That's the key. At the end, we still want a product, a card, a project that we have made that we are like, this is super pretty and I would be happy to send it to someone. Insert super fast watercolor technique. So step one, emboss something. The embossing is going to keep our watercolor inside the lines, and we aren't necessarily doing this to like color each individual petal or each individual leaf. We are doing this so that it is a very easy way to create a lot of color variation, because those embossed edges allow wells to be created in which our pigment can sit. So it's a really nice, easy way to get a lot of that watercolory look in the background without a lot of watercolory effort. So here for this one, this is the one I'm doing in gold. I did stamp both of these twice, and then I just turned my paper around to get the other side of the corner. I just kind of wanted to show you that there's, multiple ways that you can do this, and you can certainly take this as a jumping off point and play around with it even more. But these are just two cards that in real life took me, and I made two of them. So it took me maybe about an hour. And I know for some people that's going to be like too long, but you have to remember that I am planning them as I'm going. So the planning stages does take some time. So for like now that I've made it, I could probably knock one of these out in maybe like 15 minutes. Which that's a quick card for me. That's a super quick card for me, because normally my cards take like an hour and a half. So now once the heat embossing is done, here is the next thing that you want for this. You want a really saturated watercolor. So I am using Hero Art liquid watercolors. They are very saturated. I will not be watering these down. What you see me doing there with the blue is I really wanted it to be a navy. And so I used Deep Ocean, and then I mixed in, first I tried the mulled wine and it just wasn't dark enough. So then I put in a couple of drops of purple, mixed that in again. It still wasn't dark enough. So I put in some more purple, and then I was happy with the color. This is just because this is the color that I wanted to go with. I knew I wanted one card to be monochromatic. Because to me, monochromatic cards are very elegant. So the third way we're going to make this super fast and easy is we're not even going to use a paintbrush to apply the water. We're literally just going to hose that puppy down with a spray bottle, which is what I did. And then for this one's monochromatic. Just pick one color, whatever color you want. I went with more like bold jewel tones, because to me that says elegant, but you go with whatever color scheme says elegant to you, or whatever function that you need this for. Maybe you're making it a birthday card, you want it to be really playful, then go with a brighter color scheme. So you just go with whatever is making you happy at the moment. So here I hosed it down with some water, and I'm just dropping in some pigment, making sure that it's kind of getting all over where I want it to be. And then from here, I'm going to just go in and play with adding in more color. Let me stress this. There is no wrong way to do this. It just depends on how many light areas you want to have and how many dark areas you want to have. So I'm going to speed this up. Here, can you see over there? I thought I had water in my bowl, but I didn't. Didn't have any water in there to clean my brush. So you can decide how you want to go about this. Because I was going for a more elegant look, I wanted to really play up that metallic. So Hero Arts has these glimmer metallics, and their yellow gold is very yellow. Like, it is very yellow. So my embossing was not that yellow. In order to knock back the yellow, I just added a little bit of silver there, and then I'm going to splash this on. Turns out I didn't really like this, and that's okay. Watercolor is a very, very forgiving. So I loved the shimmer that it added, but I didn't like the big spots. And so I put more big spots on top of it, thinking, well, maybe that'll do something. Nope, didn't like it. It was looking very Vincent van Gogh here, if you will. And I was not a fan. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to add maybe some darker color around the embossing, and maybe I'll like that better. At this point, we are sped up. I did have to create some more blue using that same recipe that I used before. But so I'm going in and I'm adding darker color, and this is to kind of offset those big gold speckles that I didn't necessarily love. It wasn't working. So I just took my paintbrush and I made sure that I added water all over the background to break up those gold splotches, and I was much, much happier with that. So again, there's no wrong way to do this. Just depends on how dark or how light you want it to be. If you get too dark, which is eventually what I did, you can just go in with a paper towel or a baby wipe and blot it up, which is what I will do. You will see that more toward the end. But you just keep adding it till you are happy with the way that it is looking. Please remember that watercolors are always darker when they're wet. They dry back quite a bit once they are completely dry. So just keep that in mind. If you want a really bold look, you're going to have to go much darker than maybe you think that you need to. So here's where I'm going in with just that paper towel to break up some of that darkness. I was really happy with the way that was coming out. I lost a little bit of the darkness down at the bottom, so I just added a little bit more, and then I walked away from it. I let it dry. That's the other thing. If you are messing around with it and you're like, I'm not loving the way this goes, that's okay. Walk away. Let it dry. And then you'd be surprised with what you come back with. So for the second one, I wanted to show you that you can add more than one color. I added colors that were all kind of, like I said, in that jewel tone family. And these are all colors that I know work well together, so I don't have to worry about dropping them in. So it's more of a red, violet, navy, which has the purple in it, so more violet, and then a teal or a blue green, which would be next to blue on the color wheel, so they'll work very nicely together. And again, no right or wrong way. You're just going to mess around with it until you're happy with it. I knew that I wanted the center to be more of that like purpley mulled wine color. And so I just went back in and added that until I was happy. For the gold here, because I knew I didn't like the splatters the last time, I picked up the gold and then I just painted it kind of along the edges, and I liked that a lot better because it kind of bloomed out the same way the watercolor does, and I was much happier with that. So sometimes working with darker colors, it can sit on top of your embossing. If you find that is a problem, you can just go in with a slightly damp baby wipe or paper towel and just kind of buff over the surface of your embossing, and that pigment should come right up. So that is what you see me doing here. You don't want to do your die cutting until everything is completely dry, just like you don't want to do the buffing that we just did until everything is completely dry. And if you are impatient, that's totally fine. Just hit it with your heat tool. So now I've die cut it out using the coordinating die, and I'm going to start trimming down my panels. This is nautical cardstock from Hero Arts, and I am going to be using this on both cards since I use the navy on both cards. But for the one that's multicolored, you could certainly do like a eggplant or a wine or a plum color, a dark teal, tranquil teal from Gina K is a beautiful color that would work well with that. You could use any of those. So I've trimmed those down to be smaller panels that I'm going to put in between my layers. And then this is the sentiment. I use the same sentiment for both cards because if you watch my channel, you know that I prefer to have birthday cards on hand. So I did the sentiment, hey you, happy birthday. Like, hey you, happy birthday. That was kind of the idea behind it. And this is where I told you I was just going to be stamping in the clear Versamark because honestly, I was tired of washing pigment ink off of my stamps. I'm just being real with you. I love the way pigment ink works for heat embossing. I abhor its cleanup. It's so not fun. So anyway, I did both of these in the gold embossing. I could have done the other one in white because I had that white embossing, but honestly, I didn't want to have to do it twice. This is supposed to be fast and easy and simple, and I didn't want to do it twice, so I just did it the same, and I called it a day, and I'm fine with it. So yeah, like this, it's just been, I told you guys recently, just kind of been like inundated with things that were off video, so now I'm playing catch up with the videos, like trying to catch up to what I'm doing. Here, I'm going to the background. I am going to put this down just flat onto this. What is this? Is it brushed? Is it matte? Let me look. It's always linked below. It's matte gold. This is the matte gold cardstock from Concord 9th. Totally love this gold. And you might be saying to yourself, Kelly, why are you gluing everything on top of this gold and covering it up? The reason that I chose to put the gold in the background is because I am popping up my die cuts. And so while it is very challenging to see in the photos, in real life, when you are looking at the card from either side, you can see the gold peeking out. That is why I did it that way. So I'm going to apply my foam adhesive. If you don't have foam adhesive, you could certainly cut a bunch of these corners on cardstock and just stack them up. I didn't do that because I don't like die cutting, honestly. That's why. Yeah, it's not really an enjoyable part of my process. So typically if I can get away with using foam tape, I will, even though, especially if it's not big or if it's not intricate pieces, if it's big pieces like this, the foam tape doesn't bother me. And then I will line that up with the background that I die cut it out of and then adhere that into place. And I will be doing that, you'll see in the other card as well, for both of them. So, well, we were trying to have a story time. We were trying just a little bit, a smidge to have story time. So this weekend, we had just, like our regular kind of things going on. Eric ended up getting called in to go to work. So Saturday, we didn't really have too much going on, but Sunday we were doing meal prep. And then Peanut had asked if he could have one of his friends over. So I'm torn by this friend over thing because I want to be the house that the kids hang out at, like, because then I will always know where my kid is. So I want to be that house, but also boys have been described as noise with dirt on them. And if that isn't the most accurate description I have ever heard in my life. So he asked if his friend from school could come over. I contacted said friend's mother, made arrangements for him to come over, and they all play like online games together. So because of that, another kid in our neighborhood that also plays online with them wanted to come over to meet this kid because he does not go to the same school. So like all of a sudden I was having a birthday party, but there was no birthday, just the people. Just all these children. I shouldn't say. It was only 3 children, but they were so loud and running around and wild and crazy. Here, I changed my mind. Here, I was like, oh, I was going to glue this down flat and then pop up the thing, but why do that when I could just cut a rectangle of foam? This is actually Picket Fence's foam, which comes on a huge roll, which I love very, very much. It's the extra wide foam. Because you can just cut it down to the size of your panel and you're done. Like, there's no lining it up, the little strips and snips and all that. It's just one big piece of foam. Fantastic. I will spare you all of the time it took me to line this up to be happy with the way that it looked, that it was straight. It was a long time. Long time. I just kept looking at it. Finally, I was just like, Kelly, you got to make a move. Like, you got to commit. It is what it is. So yeah, so he was here, Sunday for a little while. And then, like I said, the boy down the street was also here. So it was just kind of a little bit loud. We were at least smart enough to schedule the visit to be after Caitlin's nap time. So at least we had that going for us. I like that he has friends that he can hang out with. I like seeing him so happy to hang out with them. And I like being the house that they're at so that I know what he's doing, what's going on, what he's being exposed to. I don't like all the noise, but I will trade the noise for all the pros of the other things and continue to do what we're doing. Yeah. So that was that. That was our weekend. And then we meal prepped chicken parmesan and what else? Eric made chicken tortilla soup. We used our Instapot for the first time because I'm terrified of it. Pressure cookers, scary. Has my mother been using a pressure cooker my whole life? Yes, she has. Am I afraid of them? Yes, I am. Did they teach me how to use them in home ec when I was in high school? For sure. Have I used one since? Absolutely not. So that's that. Yeah. So these little gold, are they gold pearls? I guess they are because they're domed. I use those to accent my sentiments and my cute little flowers. I did add some glitters just to the flower portion of it, but please be aware because this is watercolor and there's moisture in the glitter pen, it will pick the color back up. So make sure you're scribbling it off on a scrap piece before you move to the other card if you don't want to transfer the color. And then that's it. That's both cards. So I hope that you are inspired for a little quick, fast watercolor when you need it. And thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.